Hi, I'm Ani.
And I'm Zeev.
And welcome to Wood-Fired Herping.
On today's episode, we're doing something a little different. Rather than talk about a trip we took, we're going to be focusing a little deeper on a specific species. We'll talk a little bit about finding them, about why we think they're pretty neat, and hopefully convince you they're pretty cool too. We're also excited to be welcoming our first guest on the show. We're going to have a good time and as always, some good food, so stick around. I'm excited for this one. For one, we've been planning to do it since we came up with a podcast months ago.
Yeah.
And two, we have our buddy Danny here with us to talk about one of his favorite herbs, which is one of our favorite herbs too.
They're my favorites. I think it was one of the first. Herbs that I found with you. With you. It's one of my firsts.
Yeah. Ever since I moved to California from India back in 2011, 2010, and even way before that, Rosy Boas are pretty high up on my must-find list. Growing up in the tropical part of India, boas and pythons were a pretty regular part of herping, and it always blew my mind that there was another boa that adapted so well to the arid, dry deserts of the southwestern United States. And the first few years herping here, I was hoping to see one every time I went out. I didn't know anything about finding them, and so I didn't see a single Rosy Boa for years. I was kind of just groping around in the dark trying to find them.
I didn't even know that they were a thing. To me, growing up in Los Angeles, like suburban Los Angeles, I didn't play with snakes growing up. So for me, when you would say boas or things like that, I would think constrictors,
right,
like Britney Spears style. So I didn't realize that they were, on a smaller scale.
Well, once you know how to look for them, they're pretty easy to find. But until you do, they're not to be seen. You might chance upon one if you're hiking in the right habitat. But once you know how to look for them, they're pretty easy to find, though. Yeah. So to talk about Rosy Boas today is a buddy of mine, Danny, buddy of Ani's too, I guess. Although Ani doesn't really have any friends.
Yeah, right.
I met Danny actually looking for Rosy Boas. Last year, I was having a tough early spring looking for snakes, and I saw this guy on Facebook just posting boa after boa. I was like, who the fuck is this guy, man? Finding so many boas, and I'm out here flipping day after day and not seeing a damn thing. So I hit Danny up, and we went out, and within 15 minutes found a boa, and I was like, all right, this guy's a friend now. Yeah,
he's the magic boa man. We go to him, and every time we're feeling stuck.
So Danny's originally from Northern California, and he moved here to the southern part of the state about 10 years ago, and pretty much ever since he's pretty quickly keyed into finding rosies. When you moved here, what was the first rosy you found? How soon after moving down here?
Man, it was probably about 5 years after moving down here, actually. I kind of had a little lull in my herping life. When I got back into the hobby, I hadn't seen one before. I had seen maybe a couple pictures here or there, but didn't really know anything about them, and really just happened to stumble upon my first one.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful one for a first rosy. It was a nice desert coastal intergrade.
Oh, hell yeah.
Beautiful colors. It was a great experience, and yeah, I've been hooked ever since.
I think your first rosy is a snake you always remember. There's a lot of memorable lifers. And your first rosy is one of them, right up there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And was that it? Was it just that magical pull that made you fall so deeply for them? That it became
right away, huh?
Yeah,
your go-to.
Yeah, fascinated by them. Fascinated.
Yeah, yeah. I think my first Rosy Boa I found by just a complete fluke. I was cruising a pretty well-known road, and it was November. I didn't know anything about herping then. It was the end of November. It was the day before Thanksgiving. It was somewhere in the high 50s as far as the temperature goes, and I'm cruising, and just right there, I was passing by the spot. I was like, I'm right here, let me try this road. And I went up to the top and turned around and came back, and just right there was a rosy right there in the middle of the road. And then it took me another 5 years after that to see my second one, because I just thought, okay, cool, now I can just drive roads and find them on the roads in November, you know? That's not how you find rosies. So it's funny that, you know, we've done a lot of herping since last year for all kinds of stuff, but really rosies is what connected us in the first place.
Absolutely,
you know.
They're a very majestic species. At least for me, to see him for the first time, I was like, "Well, he's really dope."
Yeah, your first one was up in the desert, right? When we went up to the high desert.
I think so, yeah.
Or
And it was just
road,
like on the side of the road, like the cliff on the side of the road. Yeah,
desert boas are different than coastal boas. So the Rosy Boa, if you're not familiar with it, which a lot of you might not be. Although, if you're listening to this podcast, hopefully you know what a Rosy Boa is.
But if you don't, you know.
Right, if you don't. They're a smaller boa species. They're one of two boas that we have here in California, or in the United States. And they are beautiful. You'll see in the post on Instagram that goes with this episode, I'll post a couple pictures of some coastal ones, some desert ones. And so they have quite a lot of variability between, as far as the different habitats that they're found in. And Ani's first one was a desert Rosy Boa that we found. And the desert Rosy Boas are more characterized by super clean stripes. They have these three, usually orange to brick to kind of dark brown stripes that go down its back against a grayish,
bluish
background. And the desert boas have really clean, unbroken stripes usually, whereas the coastal ones have more speckling. The stripes are all more jagged, and so the boa, the Denny and I found in the beginning was just a classic coastal, but it was probably one of the better looking coastals I've ever seen.
It was.
I mean,
the blues were awesome.
Yeah, this area that we met up in has some really beautiful blue boas, and so where the gray is almost like a steel blue, but especially in photos it comes out almost like
very vibrant.
Turquoise, not a turquoise, but like a navy blue almost. It's just really deep, beautiful blue.
Super vibrant. So then, in your journeys, like in your herping adventures that you've gone, like how long did it take you to start figuring out how to target them, how to find them?
Well, it took me a few years actually to get proficient at finding Rosy Boas. When I moved to Southern California and started herping again, I kind of had to relearn herping just because growing up in the Bay Area, herping in around the Santa Cruz Mountains a lot.
It's a different atmosphere.
It's way different.
It's a different animal.
It's cooler. It's way more wet all the time.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you flip anything, even in the middle of the summer, if it's in a shady area, there's chances are it's wet under there. A lot of you just get more cold weather activity with pretty much every species up there.
Yeah.
So when
and
I came
the species
down,
you find there are so different too.
Exactly.
And looking for them. I mean, just beyond the conditions being different, how you look for them is different too.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you're in completely different terrain.
Right.
You know.
You got to learn that.
Different behavior,
habitat.
different seasons,
kind of
different
muscle
times
memory.
of day, even. I mean,
Exactly.
down to
Mm-hmm.
So I had to relearn herping altogether, and one of the first things I had to learn was for general herping is temps have to be a little higher than they do up in the Bay Area. And so I spent a few years kind of just, chasing the general snakes that most people will go looking for, or at least see while they're out. A lot of gopher snakes, king snakes. You're out at night, glossy snakes in the desert, a lot of rattlesnakes, stuff like that. But I wasn't really seeing any boas. And it really took just almost getting desperate and days where it was like, oh, it's, it'd be great if it was 78 out, but it's only 68 out today. But I'm just going to go anyways just because it's the nicest day we've had in a month.
Right. Or you're just itching to get out already.
Exactly. Like. And I'd go out, and those were the days where I'd be finding boas.
Yeah.
I'd start realizing that, they're not active at the same time every other snake
Right.
is. They have their own
they're a little
schedule.
specialer.
And it took just a few years of really going out, mostly in cooler temperatures than I was used to, and just experimenting with different, different types of herping, flipping, hiking, road cruising, whatever method you choose. But a lot of just experimenting, trial and error. There was a lot of days getting
stumped. A lot of trial and error to get to it.
I've definitely experienced those days. One of the cool things about boas too that I think draws so many people to them, and why they have such a following compared to other snakes, is it really searching for them is really methodical compared to other snakes. There's in different seasons you look for them in different ways. Even within that season, on different days, you have different ways for looking for them. And there's so many little factors that go in. You could go 30 years learning how to find them. I know there's people who we've talked to, who I know, who I herp with and stuff, who have been looking for boas for 30, 40 years and are, most people would consider them really excellent at finding boas.
Yeah.
And you ask them, they're like, yeah, I'm 30 years in and I still have another 30 years to go before I even start to think that I'm an expert on it. There's just so much to... And I don't know that there's many other snakes here in Southern California, with maybe the exception of the mountain king snakes, that are so... what's the right word? They're so particular about their behaviors in relation to environmental conditions. You'll get other snakes, they'll be like, yeah, their conditions aren't that great, but they're hungry or they're thirsty or something else happened, and they'll come out and you'll get a stray one like that. And boas like clockwork, I'm learning.
Yeah,
you
very
can
regimented.
And then once you learn that, you can say, okay, this is the conditions that I find this kind of a boa in this spot, and you wait for that condition, you go, and there it is. You know.
And there's days I can step outside and say I can just feel a boa in the air and the humidity.
He's got a sixth sense. It starts tingling. He's like, I'm near one.
I just know.
Yeah.
It happened to me a couple days ago. I hit my friend up. I said, let's go find a boa. We will find one today. And 10 minutes in, boom, boa stretched.
Yeah. So he's the boa whisperer, man.
Once you have that dialed in, it almost gets easy.
You can tap into it.
People will ask me, how do you find so many boas? And I'm like, I just go at the right time, but I suck at finding everything else, man. Yeah. Tell me to find a king snake or a gopher snake. I mean... Yeah. Flip some boards in the afternoon. I don't know what to tell you.
We've gotten pretty proficient at finding gophers. So they don't seem to leave us alone. So we'll trade off.
Once we get through winter and it starts to warm up a little bit, Daniel starts hitting me up. He's like, it's a boa day today, man. Come on out. Let's go find one. And, most of the time, I live pretty far. I mean, not that far, but in Southern California, everything's kind of far from Danny. And so most of the time I'd be like, nah, I can't come out today. But maybe a different day. Like, well, conditions are right today, man. Not the conditions aren't on a different day. And like 20 minutes later, it'll be one of his famous boa selfies just on my,
We have to trust his instinct, man. Like, we have to trust it.
I know, yeah. So, that's what's really cool about boas. And so, in the early season, which we're kind of past now in Southern California, really the only way to find boas, if you're going to look for them, is find them under cover, usually rocks, other cover as well. But even once you narrow it down that much, it's still so much narrower. The right rocks, the rocks that are facing the right direction.
I feel like even if you know all of the steps, all of the, all of the needed measures to take, I feel like sometimes they still keep you on your toes. You can be the right weather, right everything, but they're just, they're playing with you still.
That's what herping is.
But that's herping
I feel like
in general.
That,
That's what makes it fun, the little chance. Even if you know it's a little chance you're going to get skunked that day.
Right. Yeah. And then the finding something is just such a payoff on that risk. But yeah, even so when I do go out, I'm definitely not someone who goes out and flips boas a lot. I try to do it a couple times a year just to get down and get out with Dan, and get out with other people. And just it's more of almost a social
thing.
Yeah, we tried it very unsuccessfully this year. We found one alligator lizard all day.
Yeah.
But we were also pretty early. We were pretty early in the year, and it was a really hot day. It was too hot and too early.
Yeah, we weren't doing it right there.
But so I don't do it that often, and so when I do find one, it's even more exciting. I'm sure you guys still get super excited when you see one, no matter how many you've seen. But so after I'll analyze the find, I'll be like, you know what? Yeah, it makes sense that it was under that rock and not the rock next to it or something. And I feel like that's something that you could flip every rock that's out there and still next time have more to learn about which, now I can eliminate these kinds of rocks. And then next time eliminate more. And how do you when you go, without getting too specific, and we'll talk about why later, how do you kind of get out there in the field and go, okay, I'm going to hit this rock pile or that rock pile? Is it more of just a gut thing? Is it more just you're out there looking for the right rocks or the right temps, the right hill? What are you looking for out there?
I mean, the first thing I'm looking for, we're talking early season right now?
Yeah, kind of I'd say, March into April, kind of.
Just kind of when you really get in the
swing. Spring,
typically, I'm still going to, even that, if you're talking March, early April, I'm still going to be hitting only the southern sides of a hill. I'm not even going to mess with the north sides of the hill. Still too cold. A lot of mornings it's still 41, 42 during the spring. So those rocks will stay cold all day, and you just won't get a lot of activity. I mean, if you You could flip them all day if you want. You might find one boa under there.
Right, you can find a stray boa hiding somewhere.
It's the exception, not the rule.
I think you bring up something interesting with flipping in general, rocks or boards or whatever it is, that I think a lot of people who are kind of just getting into it don't realize. They think that the animals are using the shelter or the cover as shelter, when it's a lot more than that. You know, for boards especially and for rocks, they're using it to thermoregulate. As far as they're concerned, it's part of their burrow still. They're still underground.
They don't realize
they
they've
just
come
found
to the surface.
they just found a section of their burrow that's the perfect temperature, and so like you said, you choose a certain direction, or a certain direction, a certain orientation of the rock or the board or whatever it is that you're flipping, based on what the temperature would be underneath it. So on a cooler side of the hill, the temperature's not going to be there. Maybe it's a perfect rock. It's perfect for shelter. You think there should be a boa hiding under there because there's a burrow underneath it. It's facing, a bush, facing other rocks, whatever. But it won't be there because the conditions under the rock aren't good.
Exactly.
It's all these micro habitats underneath that they like. It's so specific.
I know, that's the thing. Like, even if it just seems like it should be there, they choose. It just doesn't work out. Right. And there's a very, even though, they might not be under there, but there's like an invigorating feeling when you pull the rock up and you see the burrow was there.
Right.
And you're like,
are they indentation from?
I was either just late or they'll be back, kind of feeling.
Yeah, and it's one thing.
I still feel good with it.
We'll talk a little bit at the end about kind of do's and don'ts when flipping, but it's one thing to mention quickly is we have to be careful about the rocks we flip, especially early in the season, because once you flip it, especially for boas, the chances of a boa being back under that rock later go down. Once you break that seal over winter, as we get rain less and less these years, but as we get rain in Southern California, it builds this kind of seal around the rocks, and underneath it you get this moist, humid microhabitat. And once you lift rock, even if you put the rock back perfectly and you can't tell it's been flipped,
it still breaks it.
Right, there isn't that vacuum underneath it anymore. And so it might be tempting to, like you said, hit every rock and flip under it, and like you said, you might find a boa one time, but having that patience to wait until conditions are right. Wait until the rock is
save that
the
rock
hardest,
for
right?
Months later.
Right,
you
wait.
that rock might have a bow under it.
Right, at the beginning
Today's
of
not the day.
Right.
Just leave it.
At the beginning of March, it's a maybe. You wait till April, that rock will be a for sure.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. Or else you break that seal. You wait all the way till next year.
I don't think there's many other herps, especially here in Southern California, that have such a following like boas. To the point where people who love, there's the whole boa bros, which Danny's definitely one of them, whether he likes it or not. Where their whole herping existence is about finding boas, and everything else is alright. If the day isn't good for boas, if I can't find boas today, I'll do some other herping, But if at all there's any chance I could find a boa, I'm not doing anything else but finding a boa today.
And when if someone doesn't see it and you come across it for the first time, you really understand as to why.
They're exciting, and it doesn't make sense that they're exciting. They're slugs. They're glorified slugs.
They don't know how to sit still. They're so like I think you've said it too. Is how have they survived?
I don't understand how they survive. They have no, self-preservation instincts whatsoever. When you come across a boa, they don't try to run. They don't try to. They don't try to escape. Yeah. They don't try to be defensive at all. When I'm photographing them and I'm trying to pose them, if I'm touching their head or anything, they barely react. They don't jerk back away from it. How do they not every single boa get eaten? I don't understand.
There's nothing behind the eyes.
The most defense I've ever seen was just one balling up.
Yeah, they curl up into a ball. That's right.
Walking through some brush,
Yeah,
I've balled up, and that was the only reason I even saw it.
Right. I got musked by a boa this year, and that was my first time. That was my first time I've ever got musked by a boa this year.
Boa musk. They don't musk often, but it's gnarly.
It's worse than garter musk.
It's pretty gnarly musk.
Yeah, so Danny and I went out earlier this year with another friend of ours, Greg, who will be hopefully on another episode.
Soon, actually.
We hope.
Hopefully.
If he ever gets his availability in order. Greg, if you're listening, come be on the show already.
Yeah, please.
We went out earlier this spring. I had a killer day. We're just finding snake after snake, and each snake was another species. It wasn't like we were finding repeats. We were just finding new species after new species after new species. We found a boa on that day, little baby, probably about what do you think was second year of his life, first year?
Yeah,
either it's his first year and he's eaten good, or it's his second year and he hasn't eaten good.
Right,
one of the two.
It's hard to tell with the kind of springs we've been having.
Right.
You might have been just a small second year.
I was jelly at this day. I think you invited me, but I think I worked or something.
Yeah, you couldn't come out this day. But so we flipped this little boa, and it mussed me, and it's just awful. It's this tiny little boa curled up in the palm of my hand, and it just kept shitting on my hand, man. It wouldn't stop.
Ugh, it's so righteous. I can't. It grosses me out.
You're gonna have to get used to it.
I know. I have to get used to it, but it is righteous.
Yeah.
Just wait till you handle a thread snake.
Oh goodness.
Or a long nose that mixes some blood in.
Oh, the long
that
nose.
happened to me for the first time this year. I caught it, so countless long noses, and I've never had their blood defense. And then this year I found one out of the desert. It's actually my first non-desert long nose. So long noses are super common in the desert. They're one of the most common snakes with glossies and leaf noses. And I think we talked about it in the Mojave episode, that when you're out road cruising, your standard trifecta of snakes is glossy leaf nose, long nose. You know, maybe a sidewinder too, maybe a shovel nose. But once you get away from the desert into the coastal areas, long noses definitely their population dips down. And then as you get north, while you're going coast and north, they get even less common. And so it's super exciting for me to find one in the Central Valley this year, about an hour north of Bakersfield, where you really don't see them very often. And so that was really dope. But it's the first long nose that just shot blood all over me. I picked it up and I looked down, and my hand's covered in blood, and I was like, fuck, did it get hit by a car? We road cruised it, and I was like, did it get clipped by a car? So I'm looking at it, and it's thrashing about, so I can't tell. I take it back to the headlights of the car, and I move it, and it's fine, and it just keeps spraying blood out of its ass on me.
I didn't know they did that until you told me to watch out for it when we were photographing it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
But I think it did musk on us, and I was like, yo, bro, my car smelled like it for a week.
Yeah. So, musk isn't fun no matter what the snake is. No. There's no nice musk.
No.
I was talking to someone today, speaking of blood, we're going a little tangent here, who had found
what a segue. Speaking of blood.
Speaking of bleeding, they caught a Blainville's horned lizard, and it did the whole spraying blood out of its eyes thing. I found a bunch of Blainville's horned lizards. I've never had that happen. Have you seen them do that yet?
I have never experienced it.
That was super cool. He has a picture of it. Got a picture of it dripping the blood from its eyes. So if you don't know horned lizards, there's certain species of horned lizards, one of their defense mechanisms is they squeeze their eyes really hard, and they burst blood capillaries in their eyes, and they spray little jets of blood out at you.
I think I saw this as a kid on the Animal Planet.
Right. I think Steve Irwin had
something like that. It was in slow motion.
Right. So I've never seen. The most common, I think, in one of the Texas species of horned lizards is the one that does it all the time. Maybe the short-horned lizard or short-tailed. I don't know. One of the species that aren't in California. But apparently the coastal horned lizards or Blainville horned lizards do it too. I've heard it happen, but I've never seen it. Have you seen the desert ones do it?
Never seen it in person.
Yeah. Anyway,
I have not.
That was our blood.
As we segue back.
That was our blood from weird body parts. Yeah.
Out of the herp gore field.
We could do a whole episode on herp gore.
Oh goodness, I've seen some herp gore.
Snakes, blood, and guts.
Yowzas and lizards.
So that's kind of herping for boas in spring, is all that flipping and everything. And as we transition into late spring and summer, it kind of turns more into cruising them, either hiking them in the late afternoon at sunset,
right,
or road cruising for them, which now I know is not meant to be done the day before Thanksgiving. So a couple times a year, we try to get out with Danny to road cruises, as often as we can. It's just Southern California, we live so far. But one of our best road cruising nights last year actually was with you. We went out to the desert in Riverside County, and we had a great night.
We had a few snake night that night.
Yeah, we got specks. We got all the snakes we wanted to see out there. We got specks. We got a lyre snake. It was my lifer lyre snake.
It was mine too. I'm pretty sure everything we found that night was one of my lifers.
Yeah,
I've found.
It's fun. We talked about it at a different time. It's fun. It's fun going out with Ani, or fun going out with people who haven't herped as much as you, because getting them lifers, you get to relive that excitement of your own lifer. Like when you see someone getting excited about a shovel nose because their life is I remember that. I remember how exciting my first shovel nose was, But yeah, as we went out late, and we were lucky we found a really nice boa and a couple of specks, lyre snake, long nose, ruber, shovel nose. We just
that was pretty too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
that was
it's
gorgeous.
real pretty.
It had a lot of bright orange to it.
Yeah. There's some nice in that desert coastal integrate zone. You get some really beautiful boas in general. But yeah. So we were out there probably till 1, 2 a.m. We went late.
We were late, yeah.
And every time we go out herping with Danny, the rule is if we're heading home afterwards,
we stop at the local In-N-Out.
Every time.
Right.
Every time.
Yeah.
Gotta get in.
You gotta herp and you gotta hit In-N-Out.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Maybe that's the magic.
That's the
I think
key.
he's onto
You
something
know?
here.
Yeah.
It's setting you up for the next time out.
You heard it here, folks. You want to find Rosy Boas?
You gotta
eat it
eat
in and out.
In-N-Out.
Eat in and out. Your next trip.
Definitely not sponsored by In-N-Out, but if you're listening to it, we'll take
We'll take
sponsorship.
it, though.
That's fine. We're open to that.
It's all about, bro.
Today's recipe is kind of loosely based on In-N-Out burgers. As we were saying, pretty much anytime we're done herping here in Southern California, we're making a beeline right for In-N-Out.
Yeah, I think before we even get into the car, we're trying to catch as enough reception as we can to see if the local In-N-Out is actually still open. It is a point we make. We say, wait, no, we can't go too late. We got to hit the In-N-Out.
There's been times where we have gone too late and In-N-Out's closed and we're stuck with one
And
of the
we're
other
sad.
options out there. So, this isn't an exact copy of In-N-Out burgers. It'd be pretty hard to make an exact copy out in the field anyway.
There's no such thing as an exact copy. You
Right.
can't do it. No one can do it.
No. Many have tried.
You're very, me.
I've tried,
I've
yeah.
even tried.
But I can get close. These might not be exact copies, but they're pretty damn good anyway.
For this recipe, you're going to need a couple of ingredients. You're going to need 1 pound of ground beef, 4 brioche buns, a head of iceberg lettuce, 1 heirloom tomato, pickle chips, and onions, which are optional, salt, pepper, oil, butter, and a slice of cheese or slices of cheese of your choice. American, Swiss, cheddar, or provolone. My personal favorite is American.
For a burger, yeah, American's pretty good, but the other ones are pretty good too.
They're good, but
Can't go wrong
it's
with cheese.
classic. Yeah,
All
very
cheese
true.
is good.
Very true.
For our take on In-N-Out spread, you're going to need half a cup of mayo, half a cup of ketchup, sriracha to taste, about a teaspoon of honey, and then optional you can include pickle relish like they do, or minced chives, which I like to do, or both of them.
Minced chives is interesting.
Yeah, it gives it a little bite, a little freshness, you
I
know.
would never think that.
Yeah, it's nice. It gives just a little bit of something in there.
Something else.
Yeah. So to make the burgers, you're going to take the ground beef. Now for the ground beef, you can get a burger blend in pretty much any butcher shop, any supermarket of pre-ground beef. Sometimes I like to grind my own beef if I have trims left over from steaks or whatever. You definitely don't have to grind your own beef, but ground beef is easy to find. Just grab whatever you want. I personally like 80-20 mix. That's 80% lean, 20% fat. This
Classic.
gives a juicier burger. Some people prefer 90-10. They're crazy. Use whatever you want. You're going to take the beef and divide it into 4 equal parts. Shape each part first kind of into a ball just with your hands. I like to use gloves, single-use kitchen gloves when I'm out in the field, but do what you want. Shape them into a ball, and then kind of by pressing the fingers of one hand against the palm of another hand with the burger in between, you're going to start pressing it together to form a patty. You're going to press it until you get a patty that's about half an inch thick, and then go ahead and set those aside. Repeat those for all 4 pieces and set that aside. To make the aioli, in a bowl, you're going to want to throw in the mayo, the ketchup, the honey, and the sriracha. Start with less sriracha. You can add more at the end. Add the relish and the shaved chives if you're using them. Mix it all together and taste, and then you can adjust as needed. You can add a little more sriracha, a little more honey. You can add a pinch of salt if you think it needs it. Just kind of season it and adjust it to however you like.
My personal favorite is adding just a little bit of extra the pepper. Just
Yeah,
ground black
just
pepper
throw a
in it.
little-
It gives a
little bit
nice
in.
little bite to it. I think that's a
Gives a
fun
nice
one
little
to add.
twist, yeah. Once you have your burgers and your aioli made, go ahead and heat up your cast iron over the fire until it's about medium to really hot, somewhere in between the two. Cut the brioche buns in half if they haven't been cut already. Throw a small bit of butter into the pan, just let it melt and kind of froth about. Spread it around the pan with a spatula or by tilting the pan, and then put the buns cut side down into that butter. You probably won't be able to fit all the buns at once, so just kind of do them in batches until they're all toasted. And you want to toast them until the cut sides are a real nice golden brown. Take them off the pan and set them aside, and then wipe out the pan from any of the butter that was in there. You can use paper towels, a kitchen towel, whatever you have, just wipe it out. Put the cast iron back on the heat and let it get really, really hot. Now you want it to start smoking. At this point, season the patties with salt and pepper and add them straight into the pan. Press them down hard into the surface of the pan. I use my hand. You can use a spatula if you don't want to get your hand close to the pan. Just kind of really press the patties in so they can really kind of attach themselves to the bottom of that pan so they can get a really nice hard sear on them. Sear them on that first side for about a minute and a half, and then flip them over. As soon as you flip them over, lay the slice of cheese that you're going to use on each patty and throw a little knob of butter into the pan, into somewhere in between the burgers. Let the butter melt, and as it's melting, just kind of tilt the pan and let the butter run kind of just all around the burgers, so all the burgers get a little bit of that nice melty butter. Cook it for about another minute on that second side, and then take them off and let them rest. As they're resting too, the cheese is going to continue to melt a little bit. They're going to stay juicy. And just kind of hold them until you're ready to assemble the burgers. You want to let them rest for at least about 3-4 minutes in case you've already assembled the burgers. Still let them rest for about 3-4 minutes at the minimum.
We've definitely said it in the last previous episodes. You set it and forget it for at least the same amount of time you've cooked it.
That's right. You're going to hear us. We're never going to stop repeating it.
It's essential.
Yeah. To assemble the burgers, take the bottom halves of the brioche bun, spread, a nice generous amount of aioli on there. I like it with a lot on there. If you want just a little smear, that's fine too. Add your iceberg lettuce first, and then 1 or 2 slices of your heirloom tomato. I kind of arrange some of those pickle chips around there. I like a lot of pickles on my burger, so I use probably 5, 6, 7, 8, 10,
handful
15,
of pickles. I love pickles
jar.
on a burger.
I use a lot of pickles on it, but just kind of put some pickles on there. And last, put the, or second to last, put the burger patty right on top. And very last, top half of the bun, just that nice, beautiful golden toasted bun, just right on top. Use a sharp knife to cut it in half and serve it. You can serve it on the side with, bags of chips, fresh fruit if you want.
Yeah. I
like to sometimes just slices of tomato. The burgers are going to be rich. The brioche bread is, buttery
want
and
a
rich as
freshness.
well. Something fresh. And that's pretty much that. So I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Danny, but you get hit up pretty often by people who want to start finding Rosy Boas, like I did. I was one of those people, but I'm pretty sure I wasn't the only one. You probably get it hit up pretty often, huh?
I get it very, very often.
Because there's people out there who I'm sure you'd agree with find, maybe not many, but there's people out there who find more boas or go other places to find boas, but you're kind of got known for it because you post those boas. People see that you're finding those boas. And so, kind of a couple-part question. First of all, how often, during season, when you're posting boas, how often are people hitting you up like, hey, where'd you find this? Hey, where should I go to find my own Rosy Boa?
Yeah, what are some of the questions you get for the people who slide into the DMs?
I get all sorts of questions. I'll get people being just as bold as, hey, where'd you find that boa?
Yeah.
They just want to know.
Give me locations,
yeah.
locations,
do you
please.
have a GPS?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I have one, but I ain't giving it to you, buddy. I just get people that will kind of hint at it, like, oh man, that's cool that you see Rosy Boas.
I wish I could
I
see
wish
one.
I could go out and see one sometime.
So you might give them the little pity.
Yeah.
Oh well, you do. Well, here's somewhere where you can find it. You're right.
I might give a little bit of hint, but I'll never give an
actual
location,
spot.
right.
Yeah.
I get some people that that'll just ask me how I find them.
Right, like for your technique
methods of
more.
finding
Yeah.
them, as opposed
I always
to
think that's a
asking for
better
locations.
question than asking for
It
location.
is.
I always prefer to be asked, how should I look for this, rather than where should I find this?
Yeah, it's instead of saying can I copy your homework, it's the how do I do the homework
Right.
kind of
Can you
thing.
help me,
And I always prefer,
Shenanigans.
like, if someone's going to give me information, I always prefer they tell me how to find it too, rather than location.
Right.
I want to go find the location myself.
Exactly.
If someone goes, and it's happened to me before, where someone tells me an exact location to go look for a snake, and they're like, when you get there, there's this rock pile to your left. Check out one of the 3 rocks that are on the right, and you flip them. There's a snake there. It's like going to a zoo and seeing a snake.
Yeah,
There's no fun in that.
thanks for the
Exactly.
instruction manual.
Rather tell me, there's these hills that have good rocks and parts of them, you want to flip rocks that are this size at this time of day, go look for them. And then you have to just go find the place yourself. That's a lot more rewarding.
And I'm usually more inclined to give a good answer when I have somebody that's like that. You know, like in the case of you, I was already aware of who you are. I'd already seen herping pictures. I could already tell you're a responsible herper. Right. So when you hit me up, I didn't really have a problem being like, yeah, let's go out. Right. You know.
And that's another thing, too. If people ask for it, it's one thing like, let me take you out. And then also you'll take them to a spot that's not like one of your better spots necessarily. You know, I'll be like, or someone asked me, it's happened earlier this year. I'll be like, sure, we'll go out, and I'll go to somewhere either that, in one case here in the area that I live in, there's some private land that I have access to that there's boards on, and there I can take people to kind of gauge how they are herping, because they can't go back. It's fenced off, it's gated. If I be like, I'm never herping with this person again, that's fine that I show them the spot, because they'll never get back on it again. And so it's easier to take people out together the first time, so you can gauge them firsthand how they are, you know.
And I feel like if there's listeners who aren't familiar within the community, they're going to be like, why is it so secretive? That it's super important to be very kind of cautious, especially if you're meeting someone new, because you don't know if you do show this person that location, are they going to go back without you and kind of tear it to shreds? Are they going to, are they going to hurt the habitat? Are they,
Right.
And you kind of have to, what I always keep in mind is like that no matter how much somebody says, they're not going to show anybody or tell anybody about that spot.
Always assume they will.
Always assume they'll tell at least one person. Mm-hmm. Right. And that one person that's just one person removed from you doesn't give a shit about you or your spots.
They
and they might tell 100
people.
So that if that one person slips up once, your spot might be blown to 100 people. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, there's some spots that you have to hold near,
especially somewhere like Southern California, where there's so many herpers, and because we're developing so fast, the spots that are good are getting fewer and fewer. You know, I think every year, all of us who have herped here for a little longer have spots at least once a year that get paved over. You know, we lose spots every year, and so every year it's a struggle to kind of find new spots. But it's fun. It's one of the things we enjoy doing, is going to find something new, but it kind of just reinforces how you have to be careful, because every year you have less and less spots anyway, and you really want to make sure you protect them. So you moved here, you said, about 10 years ago, right? And you said you started seriously herping down here about 5 years ago, more or less?
Yeah, probably about 5 or 6 years ago, yeah.
What would you say are some of the main differences between herping here and herping in Northern California? Because I know we have a lot of listeners from Northern California. We actually met some of them out in the desert this weekend, and one of the guys we know from up there has had a killer year. He's at, I think, 200 plus snakes already, and he's up in the Northern California part. And here we're struggling for much smaller numbers, and it's still gratifying because we're having a better year than last year, but it's so different as far as like that. I know part of that is just garter snakes, going to pond and seeing a ton of garter snakes. But so what are some of the differences that you've kind of had to either relearn or just kind of learn how to enjoy something differently from here to there?
Well, one of the biggest differences I noticed right away was that it seems like there's a lot more species down here than there are up north.
Much bigger diversity,
There's a lot of different species of garter snakes up north, but they're all garter snakes, The desert just has so much different random varieties. You can get the leaf nose, the shovel nose, variable ground snakes, Rosy Boas. A bunch of different croats. Up north, all there is northern Pacific rattlesnakes. If you go east far enough, you'll get Great Basins. But I grew up near the Bay Area, so I was on the coast.
Same thing with other herps too, with lizards and stuff like that. You get down here, you get into the desert, you have all those desert species.
Exactly, yeah.
You have diversity up there in the sense of, what do you have? You have fence lizards, you got alligator lizards, you get skinks, but you don't have all those desert lizards that we You don't have all those desert lizards that we love down here.
Mm-hmm. So I noticed, herping down here is, and it's different. One of the biggest differences is that AC doesn't seem to be as effective down here as it is up north.
If you don't know what AC is, it means artificial cover. It's like when you put out boards and stuff. We'll talk about that at the end.
AC it attracts a lot up north, and just for the simple fact, I think that it's just so much more moist up north, and it stays moist.
It stays more wet underneath it.
Exactly.
Right here, you have like a 3-4 week window when it's really good, and when it's really good, AC is killer out here. You can go out and have 20, 30 snake day, right? But it's such a short window because it's so dry.
Yeah. You can be up in San Mateo County at the top of any ridge in the middle of August, it's getting slammed with fog.
Right.
The whole summer it's getting slammed with fog because all that hot air inland's drawing it all in.
Right.
And it's just, you could be standing there and it's dripping wet on you from the trees just from all the dew and all the moisture. So all the AC stays nice and moist for the most part, especially if you're in the mountains.
Yeah.
Yeah, and another big difference was just, man, the whole desert, you know?
Yeah.
I wasn't used to the desert at all.
Right.
It was, I mean...
It's such a trip. Herping the desert for the first time is such a trip.
Yeah.
And I feel like coming from a wet climate, something that's always moist and there's so much moisture, and going just right to the desert, I feel like that's like the complete other side of the coin.
Yeah. And I really knew nothing about the desert. I was one of those guys that never been to the desert really. And...
Were you excited to move down here for the desert, or was the desert just part of down here, whether
to me the desert was like, why the fuck does anybody want to go to the desert, man? It's hot, it's dry, there ain't nothing there.
Yeah.
You know, I was one of those
it's brutal
people.
sometimes.
And then, you know, even the first time I saw it, I was like, you know, what's the big deal with this place? Why does everybody like the high desert so much?
Yeah.
It really took like going out and just, you know, hiking more. Actually, it was hiking destinations and just exploring and looking for little ghost towns and stuff like that started getting me into the desert. It's full of
rubble that you can go through.
Yeah, you have to learn to appreciate it.
Yeah.
And then you start, you know, the more you go out into the desert, the more you realize, it looks like it's all just flat nothing, but you go over one little hill and all of a sudden there might just be a massive canyon behind you with a lava flow through it, or something like that, you know, you would never see unless you just hiked in a random direction and happened to come across it. And then you do start noticing little, you know, the life that's around there. All of a sudden little lizards dashing here or there, you know. In the mornings, all of a sudden, you know, you'll see snakes and stuff like that. And,
I think I recently introduced my partner to the desert life. She joined us in a herping adventure, and coming from perspective for her, where she camps, she does all kinds of things, or not camps, but she hikes and she does all things like that.
An outdoorsy person.
Oh yeah, she does outdoor stuff, and she never realized that it was so teeming with life. You look at the grand picture, it's just, you know, it's just desert.
Empty, right.
But when you look at it at ground level, there's things scurrying, there's things all over, it's full of life. And
honestly, I feel like, I live kind of in a transition zone between the desert and coastal areas where I live, and I feel like there's an extent to which the desert is actually more diverse and has more life than some of the coastal areas, because coastal areas have, you know, a lot of plant life and have a lot of life for sure, but all the niches are occupied by like one species. So there's the trees, and when you go to the desert, there's so many microhabitats and micro environments, and there's something occupying every one of them. You know, you go into a canyon, there's different species. You go up on the hill right next to the canyon, it's different species. You go into that wash, it's different species. You go to the Joshua Tree Forest here, it's different species, and it's just so exciting that you can go within an hour's drive and find snakes, lizards, mammals that you wouldn't find anywhere else along that hour's drive each time you cross into new kind of sub-habitat.
Different hours at different days bring out different creatures of different types. Like it's just so vast and very interesting.
And there's no denying it's harder. It's harder herping in the desert.
It is.
But it's so rewarding when you kind of, I guess, unlock a new species, or unlock a new, as if it's a video game.
Unlock that achievement.
Get that level, you know. When you're like looking for something and you go after year after year. So we went out this weekend to the Mojave, which we featured in the first episode, and we go out there often, and for some reason I've never been able to find speckled rattlesnakes out there. Go to other places, find them easily. They're not a hard species to find. They're one of those species kind of like boas where they have what they like and they do what they do, and you can kind of, you know, forecast where they're going to be and go look for them. And I've just never managed to find one, and this time I finally found one. It's so rewarding. After been going out there 11 years and never found a speckled rattlesnake out there, when other people go out there and find them like that. And so, you know, you came from Northern California, which is a lot wetter and a lot different, and I moved here from the tropics, which were completely different as well. And there is such a learning curve to the desert that, like I said, even 12 years in, I haven't gotten started mastering it.
I feel like you'll try to master it for the rest of your life. I don't even think
I'm at beginner level yet. You know, it's like I'm still getting out of novice stage. I think that's what's exciting about the desert for me.
Yeah.
So then coming through this year, in the habitats that are down here and everything, obviously you've been here for a while now. What are some of your goals for this coming year and season?
Oh man.
I mean, more
Herping
boas, I'm
goals,
sure.
yeah.
You know, as many boas as you can find
boas
still.
as I can find. I mean, if you know me, you also know that desert tortoises are right there at the top of my list.
I love them. They're so
probably
cute.
the very top of my list, actually.
Yeah. And everyone knows Danny is the boa guy, but really, if you ask Danny, he's the tortoise guy,
Exactly,
first and foremost.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Every year I tell myself I'm going to go looking for that California Gila, and everybody always bails out on me, never feel like going alone. So,
I feel like last time I went out looking for him, it was you that bailed out on me. But
yeah, you know what? I had to be the one to bail at least once, all right? Like 5 years or 6 years of getting bailed on.
Yeah.
I had to bail once, but I mean, that would be nice to hit, you know. Yeah, I don't really have too many other herping goals for the year. More boas, more tortoises, you know.
Right. Well, especially as we're getting into like the end of spring and into summer here, there's less things to target.
Right.
You know, spring is really peak season here. Although you can find herps in California year-round, every month of the year.
Right.
But the snakes you find, or the herps you find in the quote-unquote off months, aren't necessarily ones you'd target.
Right.
You know, there's spring targets, summer targets, and then there's stuff you find throughout the rest of the year.
And, you know, at the beginning of my year, actually, one of my big targets for this year was going back up north, hitting the Santa Cruz Mountains, and finding a Zanata up there. I used to see him all the damn time as a kid, just hiking with my dad. In the last couple of years that I've actually targeted him, every time I've gone up there, I've come back empty-handed. So I told myself this year was going to be the year. I spent a lot of time targeting rubber boas while I was up there too the last couple of years.
Yeah, you had a good rubber boa year last year.
Yeah, I did. I did have a pretty good rubber boa last year, or rubber boa year last year.
Right.
But this year I told myself if I was going to go back up north for a trip, I was only going to target the Z's, and I haven't gone up for that trip yet. I'm supposed to go the last weekend of this month, and now I'm starting to pushing it on the season, but
yeah.
We'll see.
Well,
if
like
it
you said, the
happens or
Santa
not,
Cruz
you know?
Mountains, man, they get that coastal moisture.
Exactly.
You know, if you go later in the year and it's too late to flip them, go road cruise them.
Yeah. That's the one thing that's a little harder too about not all of Northern California, specifically anywhere from San Francisco down almost to Monterey, is you have really good. The whole Santa Cruz mountain range is awesome, but there's not tons of road cruising roads. There's a lot of little private roads and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Not tons of roads to road cruise. And the few that are decent, you know, other people are cruising them too.
Right. I think I take for granted so much road cruising because it's such a big part of herping here in Southern California.
Yeah.
Whereas other parts of the country, other parts of the world, road cruising really doesn't factor in nearly as much as it does here.
Right, yeah.
You know, here, 6 months out of the year you can road cruise stuff.
Yeah.
So.
And there's just so many roads down here to road cruise. I mean,
Right.
especially when you
All
go out to
kinds
the
of
desert.
hidden mountain roads.
Right, there's popular roads, there's less popular roads, and then there's roads that nobody knows about. You know, you can find anything you want. You can go to the if you're with someone, like we said at the beginning, where you're taking someone out for the first time, someone's from out of state, out of the area, whatever, and you want to take them somewhere for the first time, take them to the popular roads.
Right. To the Herping Disneyland.
Right, exactly, the in and out drive-through of Herping.
Yeah.
And you can definitely still find stuff there, and then if you want to go just yourself or just one buddy you trust, you can go to roads that only you know, and so that's such a big part of herping here.
Yeah. And the Santa Cruz Mountains just are tricky to road cruise in the first place, just because you know, you could be down in San Jose or San Mateo, and it could be, you know, 7 p.m. and it's 89 degrees down there, a hot summer night, and you're like, cool, I'm gonna go road cruise and I'm gonna go hit, you know, the top of the Santa Cruz Mountains, and you drive up there and it's, you know, 48 up there, completely fogged in, everything is drenched, the trees are dripping water on you from all the fog while you're driving, and you're just, I'm not gonna find nothing tonight. It's like, you know, the Santa Cruz, those mountains have some, and it's like that all the way up the coast. That fog comes in and it could just mess things up, you know.
Right, it's so temperamental,
especially for the road cruising. But what is nice is on those kind of nights, if you do have a good spot to, say, flip some cover or something that you know is right there, if you're looking for something like a rubber boa, 48 degrees, you'll still find it.
They love the cold weather.
Long, you know? So sometimes you just have to adjust your plan a little more than you thought you would. You have to be a little more flexible sometimes. Just, you know, the weather's trickier, not so stable.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's something important to keep in mind for herping in general. That a lot of people, I feel like, don't keep in mind as much as they should is just to be spontaneous. You know,
Yeah.
you set a plan, but be ready to abandon it and do something completely different.
I know last year that happened to us. Last year we would go out with like a plan. Last year
was such a weird
funky.
year. Last year was
it was
a weird
very
year.
funky, but I remember going out with a plan in mind. But when we saw
But you get there and it's like, oh, the conditions are
that's
awful
not,
here.
Yeah.
We're going somewhere else,
But
or we're doing something else, or fuck it, we're going right home.
Yeah.
You know.
Hell, let's see what we can find. And if I remember correctly, some of the times we had to change it up. We got lucky with some creatures.
Absolutely. Your first Rosy Boas was like that.
Yeah.
That's what.
That was a whim, a change up in the plan, and
we're like, this isn't working. Let's do this instead.
Yeah.
And
there it was.
Within a minute and a half of changing our plans, that boa was full. So, this boa we found in the desert last year was, just giant. It was probably thick. Like, what is that? About 1.5 inches, 2 inches in diameter, and it's pushing 4 feet. And I weighed just several pounds. It probably wasn't, but it felt like it was as thick as my forearm.
Yeah. It's a monster.
Yeah. It was a
the big ones are really fun
pretty.
to see because you see a boa and that's spent 20-25 years on this earth surviving.
Exactly, yeah.
I don't know how it survived that long.
I don't know.
But it survived. Yeah, I found my first boa this year.
By spending most of its time under rocks or underground.
The only boa I've seen that big as well was my first boa this year out by your neck of the woods. I think I've shown you that boa, the pictures of that boa before. That thing was just monster as well, which was fun. So when you're not herping and finding boas, you work for a wildlife rehab, right? Which is super cool. Where is the wildlife rehab and what's?
We are called Sunshine Haven Wildlife Rehabilitation Center, and we are in Herping Valley, California.
Where is Herping Valley for all the people who aren't from Southern California?
Is basically, it used to be part of Riverside, so it's on the north side of Mount Rubidoux, basically, in Riverside. It's right there,
super
between Riverside, San Bernardino area.
Does Sunshine Haven specialize in any specific kind of wildlife, or is it kind of more generalized?
Actually, we are one of the only wildlife rehabs in the whole state that takes everything. So most rehabbers will specialize in birds or mammals or whatever, reptiles. Some will even get as specific as they only do ducks or they only do hummingbirds. We will take anything. We have a lot of satellite rehabbers too that do specialize in certain things, so that if we're overwhelmed by the care of something that does need a lot of round the clock care, we can send it out to a satellite that specializes in that specific animal. But yeah, we will take.
What are some of the highlights of the stuff you've gotten in and been able to work with?
Well, that's a good one.
I know, it's a hard question. Every animal's amazing,
You come across all kinds of creatures. How do you pick your favorite?
Oh man, yeah. Well, see, all right. I specifically I do all the reptile work. So anything that comes in that's a reptile, I get to deal with. But because they're all native reptiles, I pretty much have experience with them all in the field.
Right.
Already.
I've seen them a million times, handled them a million times. So I get more excited when it's something that I'm not really familiar with.
Right, sure, yeah.
So as soon as I started, I was all about the big birds, the birds of prey, the hawks and the owls. That gripped me. I still love it. I love doing releases.
That must be so
especially
satisfying.
Owls, but hawks are really cool too.
Owls have something else about them.
I love owls. They're so majestic. That'd be
Raptors
so dope.
get more attention than owls because raptors are big and majestic and amazing. But I think owls deserve the most. Owls are amazing.
They are. There's something special about them, and it's funny because pretty much, it's all either barn owls or great horned owls that we're getting, and the great horned owls are huge. Like when they're adults and you have them right on you, they're huge.
Yeah,
and
I saw my first one out in the weekend. Out in the desert this weekend.
When they stand up, they almost got full
it's like
legs.
A child.
It's crazy.
And barn owls are not even like half the size of a great horned owl. But man, they just hate you. They hate everything about you. They look at
barn owls?
They're looking at you like, am I going to rip your face off from the top down or the bottom up?
Yeah.
Which one do you want? Like, they hate you.
They're calculating how they're going to fuck you up.
You're going there trying to release them like, hey man, I just saved your life. I'm trying to let you go. And you're screaming at me with this death scream with this gnarly hiss underneath it. They just, they hate you.
So ungrateful.
It's so ungrateful, yeah.
Animals, man.
I'm like, the bigger ones are always better, great horned owls are better. Same with hawks. Like I'd rather deal with a red tail hawk than a Cooper's hawk any day. Cooper's hawks are just like barn owls. They just look at you and they just want to rip your face off. They just want to rip your face off. So it's kind of interesting getting to see all these different dynamics of different animals that I've never worked with before. Cool. I really enjoyed. We had some bobcat kittens last year.
I remember you showing me pictures of them.
They're cool because they're feisty too. Bobcats are another one where they don't like humans.
Yeah,
you'd rather deal with some baby mountain lions are going to be nicer than bobcats, but they're so cute and they just have so much attitude and stuff. Yeah, so I mean, we get all sorts of cool stuff like that.
How often does something new come into the into the rehab center?
You know, it all depends on what season it is. So the real peak season is going to be like March through maybe early June, really late May, kind of right now, where you're getting stuff. I mean, we can get 10 animals a day, sometimes 15 animals a day, but a lot of times that's just a litter of something. Right. Everything's being born in the spring, you know. A lot of maybe one baby will get abandoned out of a litter of 10. A possum or a raccoon gets left behind or something like that. A lot of times we'll get litters, a whole litter if it's, you know, a mom got hit by a car and the litter was standing next. That's actually how we got those 2 bobcats last year. Was the mom had been hit by a car and somebody just the two kittens were just sitting right next to her. They didn't know what to do. They weren't gonna leave. They're just sitting there next to her dead body. So we'll get a lot of animals like that. A lot of bird calls from people that have, you know, hurt hawks that fly into their yard, stuff like that. That's really common because, especially, you know, Southern California, a lot of people have pools, so it attracts a lot of birds and stuff. Especially injured animals are going to want to land somewhere where they can get water too.
They get water. I know. My backyard's caught them. A few pigeons, and I think we had a duck once. They've gotten hurt and they come towards the pool. Yeah. We try to rehabilitate them.
A duck in your pool is probably pretty at home. The duck is probably pretty happy there.
Yeah, but I think it was a duck. It was like hurt. And we've had a couple of doves.
Well, you live right on the flight path of the airport too. I bet you get birds from there as well.
Yeah, we get a lot.
Yeah. So when you say you do all the reptiles for the rehab, what does that usually entail? Is it pretty much just relocations for the most part? How often do you guys get sick and injured reptiles? And what does sick and injured reptiles look like for the most part?
Okay, so what was the first part of that question?
What kind of, I mean, the reptiles you're kind of dealing with through the rehab, is it mostly just relocations?
Oh, okay, yeah. So we do relocations. I'd say that's the majority is probably relocations, not by a lot. We'll get people that they'll hit it's usually a gopher snake or a coach whip, hit them with their lawnmower or weed whacker while they're doing the lawn. And sometimes it's just something with, like, you know, it's cut. You can tell it's just a superficial thing. They're not dead and they're not going to die. And it's usually at the end of the tail because the snakes are already taking off trying to get away. So that's probably the most common injured one that we get that we can actually deal with. I mean, you get a lot of times where people will hit a snake with their car and they'll bring it, and the thing might be alive, but you can tell this thing's going to die.
Most main thing
it's basically a panicking thing brought to
and a lot of times, you know, they'll put it in something like a cooler or something that they have on them, and by the time they get it to us, when it's hit by a car, I'd say probably 8 out of 10 times it's already dead when they drop it off and we open it up. Oh, look, this snake's already dead. So those are probably the most common ones that we get brought into us.
Since you guys aren't that far from the desert, and I know you have a couple satellite locations in the high desert, do you guys what's kind of your guys' deal with desert tortoises?
We can work with desert tortoises. We have rehabbed a couple of desert tortoises since I've been there. Typically, you want to get as much information on a desert tortoise as you can before you take it in, just because they are very protected. And they take that protection very seriously.
As they should.
Absolutely. You know, you have to get exact location. Has it been in contact with you?
Pets,
any
other
pets,
animals,
anything else? how long have you been holding on to it, stuff like that will make a big difference.
Is that for the worry of if you do take that tortoise back into its habitat of unleashing like new germs and things to the area?
And so one of the biggest threats for wild desert tortoises, other than habitat destruction and invasive species like crows and ravens, is upper respiratory tract disease, and it pretty much all comes from contact with humans.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
We can transfer it to tortoises really easily.
Exactly.
Which is one of the reasons, like we talked about in our tortoise episode, our desert episode with tortoises, it's so important to stay far away from wild tortoises. If you see one in the wild, keep that distance from it.
Right. And so, it can easily be passed from humans to tortoises, and a lot of times, especially the 60s, 70s, and 80s, people would take tortoises all the time from the desert
for
like
pets.
Yeah, for pets.
And then 10 years later, I'm bored with it, and just put it back out in the desert. And it will survive fine, but it's going to pass that disease to everything else it has.
Right.
And it is a deadly disease. It does kill them eventually. And it's not a fun death for them either.
Yeah.
There have been a couple that somebody found, actually separate people found them, that had upper respiratory tract disease. They were wild ones.
They brought them in with the respiratory disease already.
And they found it within days, so it wasn't them that gave them the disease. They found them heavily diseased already.
Is there, when something like that comes in from the wild with a disease like that, is there any kind of framework for reporting that to Fish and Wildlife, or keeping track of that so you know that area has that going around?
Yes.
What's the deal with that?
So our database basically records every animal that comes in is recorded in the database. Every diagnostic we do is recorded. All the results are recorded, and at the end of the year, all the records get sent to Fish and Game for every animal. Fish and Wildlife now. All the reports get sent to Fish and Wildlife, so they have a track on all the disease too. And actually, in reality, as wildlife rehabbers, we rehab individual animals, and this one has a broken arm, this one has a broken leg, whatever, broken wing, this one's sick, whatever. The biggest thing that we do, or the most beneficial, I think, and the most important, is being like the first eyes on zoonotic disease. Yeah. Because we are constantly getting sick animals in all the time, and people don't even realize that animals are sick, especially birds. Birds have so many diseases.
Birds have a lot.
Avian pox, avian flu, all sorts of stuff, that don't show symptoms, and if they do, they're symptoms that the normal person can't just look at them and see. And so, we're really the first eyes on all those diseases, and that's a big part of conservation, because saving one animal is one thing, one injured individual animal, but if you can, get on top of a disease and figure out how to stop it, you're saving a lot more animals.
A population, a species, or something, right? I think so many people have this perception of wildlife rehabs as merely being somewhere you take a sick animal to recover and get released back to the wild.
There's so much more that's going on.
It's such an important component of the whole conservation. When you look at the whole bigger picture of conversation, wildlife rehabs are such an important part of that.
Mm-hmm. Now, for something like for the desert tortoise, you're saying that the respiratory disease I know, is that something that's terminal to them, or is that something you guys are able to treat for them?
You can treat it. Treatments are mixed results.
Yeah. Probably depends how long they've had it and how serious it is.
For kind of the standard course of treatment for a desert tortoise, or for most reptiles in general that have respiratory disease, is to use Baytril. And it's somewhat effective, but probably overprescribed for all reptiles in general. They need to find some better treatments, to be honest with you.
I know that. Do you treat it in the same way as you would treat a respiratory infection in a snake? Can you fog them with the antibacterial?
No, actually, The one thing about the desert tortoises is that they have to have, well, they don't. I'm not going to say they have to, but I've noticed that we've been more successful when they have access to like natural sunlight. So for a snake, that's not going to make a difference, you know. But for a desert tortoise, I've noticed it makes a huge
Notice the difference between
difference.
natural sunlight and providing that through artificial lighting, UVB and stuff. You've noticed a difference.
Yes,
in
I
that.
have noticed it.
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I feel like if
you can't really replicate the sun.
Yeah, you can, and I feel like if the animal is already sick, there's nothing better than just putting it under the actual source.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
put it under the sun, let it heal up.
Yeah, and we got one desert tortoise. I mean, this guy, he was every breath blowing bubbles out his nose.
Oh,
Just,
dang.
eyes all crusted up, mouth, nose, everything just so crusted, almost crusted shut. And I gave him his first dose of Baytril, and then I put him straight out into the sun. I'm like, this guy looks like crap, because he also had metabolic bone disease. I don't know how, because it was a wild tortoise, but you could tell he was having signs. He might have been one at some point that somebody had in their house.
Released,
I'm just like, I'm gonna put this guy in the sun because he don't look good. And like within 20 minutes, like so much snot, congestion was just rushing pouring out his nose, and then I could see him, you know, like taking breaths, and it was like I could tell it was a relief to him, not being blowing bubbles and to have like a clean
intake of air,
airway, you know, just and for a respiratory disease like that makes a big difference to be able to clear out the sinuses. And a snake, you know, even if it would help with a snake, good luck getting a snake to sit in the sun if it's going to go hide under something. You know? But they can't take the direct sunlight. Most snakes don't want to be in the sun. Desert tortoises do a lot of the time.
That must be such a rewarding feeling, is seeing that your help is helping this creature live the rest of its life.
Right.
It's so fulfilling.
Right.
To witness something like that.
Yeah.
That's so great.
The other thing I wanted to kind of touch upon more in detail that we kind of talked about a little bit when we were talking about boas earlier is just the beating that habitat takes from people looking for boas. You know, I'm sure you've experienced it even more than I have, far more than I have, because you live out in the area where people are looking out for boas, and B, you're out there looking for them so much more than I am. But even the few times that we've been out looking for them, you go to spots that are even just slightly known, not even the really well-known spots, and half the rocks are flipped and not put back, or you can see like chisel marks from hammers being used to pry open rock crevices and other stuff. And we always think it's such a short-sighted way of herping, because you can tear up all the habitat and maybe find a boa or two, but
nothing's ever going to come back there.
Well, it's not that nothing would ever come back there. The stuff is going to still live there, but it's not going to live under the rocks that you can look under again. It'll still be there underground. Right. I don't think that destroying the habitat is doing much to hurt the population of the animals.
I'd agree with that.
I think they're still thriving to the extent they were thriving before, but just deeper underground.
Right.
Because they're not finding the rocks aren't good anymore. You know, the rocks aren't flat, the rocks aren't sealed, and so Rosy Boas, like we were saying, are such a popular snake. You know, and people love them, and they have such a following and such a fan base, for lack of a better word, almost like they're a boy band. You know.
I got their poster in my room.
Is it signed though? 'Cause I got the signed one.
No, I'm too poor.
Rosy Boas trading cards.
Yeah.
But I think it's super important for kind of the herping community as a whole to strike that balance between the appreciation for them and wanting to go look for them, and not destroying the habitat. You know, I mean, how have you noticed it getting worse in the last couple of years?
I have, yeah.
I think
that's for multiple factors.
You
know, we talked already about rocks being sealed. You know, that's always an issue. Anytime you flip a rock, you're breaking that seal.
Right. There's no avoiding that.
Yeah, it's going to happen. You can try to reset the seal. I've done that on some rocks where I just
pack the earth in and stuff. And it gets you close,
but I think that a lot of the methods maybe that we used before as herpers when we're flipping rocks don't really work anymore because, you know, I've noticed spots where, say maybe 3 years ago, where a popular spot that I would herp got hit hard by some people that didn't give a shit, and they didn't put the rocks back right. But when I would find them, I would set them back up somewhat right and be like, you know, that'll be good.
Right, fix it as much
Next
as you can.
rain, it'll be good. It'll settle back down.
Right.
And there won't be any problems. Well, the only problem is we've been in a drought for years now, and there is no next rain to resettle those rocks. So I'm finding places where I can tell, you know what, this rock probably hasn't been flipped in 3 years, and it's still not resealed.
Yep.
I can still tell. So
yeah, I went out earlier this year. I mean, really early, way too early to look for rosies even, just to scout new habitat for when the season is good.
Yeah.
And we'd get to places that, I mean, I'm talking, you know, it's early January and it's a high of 48 degrees that day.
Mm-hmm.
There's no boas out anywhere. There's no boas. And these rock piles are ripped apart already by people looking for them as if they're going to find a boa, and they just destroy them. That's it. That rock pile's done for the year, you know? Because we've had, you know, a couple of drizzles since January.
Right.
But no real rain.
Nothing
No rain that's
major.
going to soak in.
Exactly.
It's going to create the seal and then soak in and bring those snakes up.
I know that we witnessed that a lot last year too, and I remember we went to certain locations where we went to go look for things, and at the end of the day, it was just resetting rocks.
Right, our whole
The whole
day
time
was
was
spent
just
just fixing
resetting rocks.
habitat.
And I think with the case with Rosy Boas too is that, you know, they don't follow the same patterns as all those other snakes we talked about. And when most herpers go out looking for Rosy Boas, at least to begin with, they don't know that.
Right.
And they might be out in Riverside for 1 or 2 days that year, or down in Temecula or somewhere, you know, somewhere where there's rosies, and be like, this is my only day there this year.
Right.
And they
I'm
get
going to try as
desperate.
hard as I can. I'm going to rip apart every rock trying to find one.
And they do. And
right, they might find the 1 or 2 boas.
Exactly.
But no one else is finding one that year. And if no one like us goes through and fixes it, they're not coming back next year and finding a boa either.
Exactly. And they just, they go around ripping everything up, and if they knew what to look for, they'd realize that 90% of the rocks they just ripped up, there was no chance of a boa being under there that day anyways.
Right, but it'd be a home for, you know, either other snakes, night snakes, black-headed snakes, glossies, you know, this full...
Or it'd be home for a boa a month from that time.
Right,
you know?
or invertebrates, or just a healthy environment underneath there anyway.
Yeah, all kinds of things.
Yeah.
All kinds of bugs and insects that are just healthy for the earth. And
they're just living their life.
You know, yeah, they're just living their little life. And here comes someone just tearing up the rock they're living under.
Yeah. I think I have a theory for why it seems to have gotten so much worse in the last couple of years. I started noticing it in 2020 is when I really started noticing it getting bad. I mean, there's always been to an extent this. And I think with the pandemic, a lot of people were, at the beginning of the pandemic, you know, everything shut down. They didn't have anything to do. And one of the only encouraged activities was to go outside, go out to nature. And I think a lot more people got into the hobby at the time. People who thought snakes were cool or whatever, and now they're like, fuck it, I have all this time, let me go out looking for them. And they have no way of knowing, and it's not their fault, they have no way of knowing. There isn't a resource out there unless you're really looking for it. I mean, it's out there if you look for it. There's other herpers, there's websites. But if you're not looking for it, or if you don't know where to look, there's no resource out there to teach you how to herp. You know, it's something we've learned over years. I've done stupid shit when I was first starting. I'm sure we all have. And so many more people are going out. But like we said at the beginning, there's limited spots. You know, so all of them are hitting the same spot. Yeah. And especially with the known spots where people post a photo. That's one of the other reasons we were saying earlier, it's so important to guard locations, you know?
Right.
It's not just about one person, the person you're telling going back and fucking it up. It's about them spreading it, and suddenly you go back there a year later and 30 people have been through, and it's unrecognizable, you know?
Yeah.
And something you hear us kind of talk about in this episode and other episodes, you probably have heard us say ethical herping. And you know, it's a phrase that gets thrown around a lot by more experienced herpers. But, you know, what does that mean to you, ethical herping?
Well, to me, I mean, the first and foremost thing of ethical herping is, like, you respect the land you're herping on.
Yeah.
Like you're talking about people chiseling rocks and just ripping apart rock structures or ripping rocks out of the ground. That's not respecting the land, you know?
Yeah.
If you want the land to be good to you, you got to be good to the land.
I think definitely respecting the land is such an important part of that. And beyond respecting the land, it's or another way to say it is just respecting nature, the animals too.
I mean, for me, the other really important part about like ethical herping is like respecting other herpers, respecting the culture of herping.
It's a small
and
community,
the tradition.
Yeah, don't be an ass while you're out there and you see other herpers
Right.
and like stomping on each other's toes, kind of thing.
Right.
Herping's a small community, and we all know each other. Even if we don't know each other personally, we know most other herpers by name, or we know somebody they know.
Yeah.
And word gets out really fast.
Yep.
If you're an unethical herper, if you're someone who cares about rock piles or collects from everywhere they go, or people show you spots and you go back there and take animals out of there, people know, and you're gonna start seeing that people aren't going to take you places. People aren't going to want to herp with you.
Yep.
And more than that, people are going to actively go out of their way to try to make herping harder for you. You know, there's a herper in San Diego who has rightfully so been getting a really bad name. I won't name him here, but about collecting endangered species and posting really irresponsible posts in as far as like teaching new herpers how to handle snakes and stuff. And it's gotten to the point where I know that there are herpers out there who have either considered or actually gone ahead with reporting him to Fish and Wildlife or other agencies, because when someone goes out there and does that so publicly, it gives a bad name to all of us, and it can cause, I mean, not really, it's not consequences for the rest of us in the sense that anything really bad will happen, but as far as new regulations, new laws that prevent us from doing what we love, and we're out there doing it responsibly, and these people are out there doing it irresponsibly and just fucking it up for everybody.
Ruin it for the rest of us.
And I think basically kind of something that sums up all of that is that leave no trace guidelines. The same thing when you're going out to enjoy nature for anything, whether it's herping, birding, camping, leave wherever you were as if you weren't there. No one should be able to know you were there.
To me, that's a really to me that's a big part of ethical herping. And it's ethical. How can you say ethical naturing?
Right.
Is to not. So for me, I like going out with Eve and experiencing herping and going into these rural areas, back roads, mountains, all over. It was always so shocking to me that no matter how far we went, there was always a glass Modelo bottle somewhere.
Yes.
And I would always find it. And
it's always Modelo, too. It's never
always
another
Modelo.
one.
That's nothing else.
Right.
It's always Modelo. And
never
I made it
Pacifico
a point.
Or Corona. It's always Modelo.
And I'm starting a coffee table book of taking pictures of
Every
all
Modelo
of them that I find
Modelo.
at different locations.
In situ Modelo bottles.
Yeah. And so that's just, it's so important to do that, leave no trace mentality to kind of take everything that you've brought there, take it all with you, down to bottles, to the finest scraps of paper. Just always take it with you. And I think something that's gotten into my mind that I want to try going out more is keeping black bags in the car.
Bags, taking out trash bags.
And
right.
if we do it and we see it, just clean up the area.
Yeah. Ellie and I, my wife and I, when we go out camping in the desert, we do that. We see any trash, we collect it, put it out there. I know when we go herping with Danny, when we're hiking there, you'll see a plastic bottle or something, you grab it, you scrunch it up, you put it in your pocket, and you take it out of there. That's the way we should do it.
Especially for me, the big one's Mylar balloons.
Yeah.
I know I can't pick up
saw
every
them
piece of trash.
So I'm glad you brought that up. We were out in the Mojave this weekend, and I took us we were in 2 cars, we were 5 of us, and I took these guys to a spot that only I know, as far as I know. I mean, other people know of it because the road exists there, but I don't know anybody else who goes there. It's this one campsite that's set away from a different campground by this tiny road you don't realize is a road until you go over this little bump and you're on it. So you can't see it from the campsite. And it winds away and goes to the top of this hill in the top of a mountain range out in the desert. And so it's the highest point in this mountain range. And you can see, I don't know, hundreds of miles in every direction. It's the best view I've seen in California, period. It's absolutely my most sacred, most favored spot in the desert. So I took these guys there to experience it and to see it and to awe it. It's so humbling being there. You see the whole desert, you feel small. It's amazing. We're standing there. We're at least 100 miles from any closest civilization, right? Some civilizations further, but you go in a 100-mile radius and there's no civilization. We're standing there, we're looking out at the desert. Suddenly, off to the left, there's some movement that catches my eye. And I kind of look, I'm looking for daytime herps, I'm looking for animals up there, I've seen all kinds of wildlife there. And I look, and just coming out of the canyon to the left of us, which is
slowly rising.
You can't access that canyon, there's nobody in that canyon. So somehow just from the wind or something, rising from that canyon is this giant heart-shaped
It was
mylar
this
balloon.
giant pink
Mylar.
It
heart
just
shape.
flies out of this canyon,
floating.
comes over us, floats over us in the middle of the desert, man. We hadn't seen another human being in hours.
In hours.
Hours of straight driving, I mean, right? And it just floats above us and kind of floats off in the distance. We're just staring in shock as this mylar balloon just continues out. And it's eventually going to end up potentially hitting a power line somewhere 500-600 miles away from where it was released, setting off a fire. Mylar balloons, I'm with you
God
on that
knows
one.
where that one came from.
Or in the
Literally
belly
just-
of a desert tortoise.
Yes. Yeah, they're
I pulled
bright,
so many
they're
out of
colorful,
just
right?
creosote bushes, and I've seen desert tortoises trying to eat them before.
Yeah, they're bright and colorful. They look attractive to them. So I think one thing that I take care of when I'm posting, we've talked about before, for me the herping is about photography. I photograph, and that's kind of how I get my kicks, right, in herping. And it's about posting those photographs, obviously, getting the feedback on there. And one thing that's important is whenever I post, whatever little nugget I can add to the caption about ethical herping, I try to make sure that not every post is preaching about it. You don't want to come off as preachy, you don't want to come off as patronizing, but every conversation you have about herping with someone who potentially might not be as aware about ethical herping as you are, I feel like it's important to use that opportunity to even just educate them just a little bit, just to add that little bit out there. And the more you put out there, eventually, hopefully enough people will hit critical mass on that. And I know, like with the rehab, one of the things that I don't know if specifically Sunshine Haven works with specifically, but rehabs in general, one of the great things about them is in different ways they work on education, right? They work on educating people about wildlife, which is so important. And that's, I think, should be a goal for any responsible herper who loves the hobby, is just making sure that vision of respecting the land and respecting the animals and keeping it as good as it was for the next herper, for the next snake, for you next year, is shared as much as possible. The last kind of point about Rosy Boas specifically when it comes to ethical herping is they're probably one of the more collected snakes, right? And as a general rule, there are legal ways to collect in California. You can have a permit for it, and in general, I don't have a problem with that. If you want to collect legally and you keep it within the bounds of what's legal, that's fine. Additionally, with Rosy Boas, there's such a popular snake in the pet trade that any locality you want, any color morph you want, any pattern you want from Rosy Boas is available in captivity for a lot cheaper than the gas it takes to go out and look for them and collect one, right. And I think if your only goal is to go out and look for Rosies because you want one as a pet, it's a lot easier, A, to get one in captivity, B, it's a lot cheaper in the long run to get one in captivity, and C, you're going to get a healthier animal that does a lot better in captivity than a wild-caught snake,
right. You'll probably get a prettier one, too.
Probably, right. You can go out,
a fancy bred one with all kinds of colors and stuff.
Right, or even just a wild type as far as how it looks, but just a perfect specimen, because they can breed that out, as opposed to having to go out and find 30, 40 Rosy Boas before you find one you want to collect. And meanwhile, you flipped, 800 rocks, and if you're, you know what you're doing, then that's fine. Then you left it as it was, and you go out next year and find more. But a lot of these kids don't. And they're out there looking for pets, and it's so much easier to just get them in captivity.
It is. Yeah.
So to wrap things up here, I do want to talk about kind of all of the feedback we've gotten and all of the love that we've gotten so far. Like Steve said, we were out in the Mojave this past weekend, and we met some wonderful people who were really coming up to us and recognizing us for the podcast and saying that they really loved listening to us and talking.
It was really cool. It's so great to create something and get that positive feedback.
It felt. I've never had this kind of feeling before, and to have people come up and say, "Hey, I really love the podcast," of something we're really pouring our heart and souls into.
I'll be completely honest. When Ani and I decided to do this podcast, it was more just because we thought it'd be something that's fun to do.
Yeah.
We expected 5-10 people to listen.
I did not expect the recognition it's gotten.
We're in the hundreds of unique streams now, which is awesome. It's super gratifying. And so if you're listening to this and you were one of those people that came up to us, keep doing that shit.
Yeah, please do. Share with all your friends.
Write to us. Keep coming up to us.
With your husbands, your wives, your sisters, we like that. Everyone. Share it with everyone that you can. It's a podcast for all. It's fun. It's an adventure. Even if it's a new world for you, it's definitely fun to come along. And I just want to go ahead and thank you for all of the love. We are available everywhere that you get podcasts, from Spotify to Google to Apple. Anywhere you can get your podcast, we are there for you. There's so much more that's coming up. We've got Snakes on Movie Sets. We've got talking about SoCal as a whole, and everything that goes on here. So come join us. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts as well. You can also follow us on Instagram at Wordfired Herping. And then, that's going to be it. So hop in the car. Let's go.